Hello and welcome to your Stage 7 Mathematics Cambridge course. Today we'll be looking at Unit 3.4 and that will be rounding off. We'll be looking at rounding off to the nearest 10, rounding off to the nearest 100, and lastly we'll look at rounding off to the nearest 1,000. Let's kickstart this lesson with a couple of good examples. Right, here we go. So question 1, we are asked to round off 23 to the nearest 10. Okay, so we want to round off 23 to the nearest 10. In this case, what we do is you look at the units. Our unit there is 3. Now, if your units are less than 5, then we round down. If your units are less than 5, then you round down to the previous 10. So in other words, you also consider 23 is between 20 and 30. So 23 is between 20 and 30. If the unit is less than 5, then you go back to the previous 10. Your answer then rounding off 23 to the nearest 10 will just be 20. Let's look at another example. Example number 2, we want to round off 46 to the nearest 10. Now, considering the unit again, if you look at that 6 there, and we can see that 6 is greater than 5. So the rule on this one is that if your unit is greater or equals to 5, then we round up. Okay, 46 is between 40 and 50. So if we are rounding up, 46 becomes 50. Okay. Another example, round off 29 to the nearest 10. Again, if we use our rule, if the unit is greater or equals to 5, as in this case, we've got the 9 there, which is greater than 5, then what we are going to do is we are going to round up. So we know that 29 is between 20 and 30. So if we round up, the next 10 will be 30. Another mathematical way of explaining this is that if this number is less than 5, then we leave it as is. It stays the same, and we just round down to the previous 10. If the number is bigger or equals to 5, we change it to be a 1 and we add it to your 10s. That's why this is called rounding off to the nearest 10. Likewise, in example 3, if the number is bigger than 5, in this case it was 9, we changed it to be a 1 and we added to the 2 so that the 2 became a 3 and your nearest 10 therefore was 30. Let's have a look at rounding off to the nearest 100. If we round off to the nearest 100, again, let's take some examples there. Let's round 342 to the nearest 100. In this case, we are going to consider not only the unit, but the 10 as well. So the rule is that if your 10 there is less than 50, then we round down. 42 is less than 50, so, and we know 342 in terms of hundreds is going to be between 300 and 400. So rounding it down will give us 300. Second example, rounding off to the nearest 100, let's take 369. Now, if you consider again your 10s, you've got 69 there, and our rule is that if your 10s are greater or equals to 50, then you round up. Now, again, 369 is between 300 in terms of hundreds, 300 and 400. So we will round this up and it becomes 400. Our final answer becomes 400. And the last one, on rounding off to the nearest 100. Question 3, let's suppose now we want to round off to 4,964 to the nearest 100. Okay, same rule applies. Consider your tens, that's 64. We know that the rule states that if our tens there are greater or equals to 50, then we round up. An interesting thing happens with this one, because when we round up there, we've got 4,900, okay, and we want to round off to the nearest 100. So 4,900 will then become 5,000. If we apply our rule of adding ones, okay, the 6 is bigger than 5. So this changes to be a 1 and we add it to the previous number, which becomes a 10. But what we do is you take the 0, you put it there, and you have a remainder of 1, which you add to the 4, and that becomes a 5. Just be careful. Don't get this back to 4,000 as often is the case, that people might think, okay, if I just have a 000 there, I've taken care of it. Remember that the 1,000 also changes and it's rounded up. Okay, it's looking at the nearest 1,000 now. Example 1, to round off to the nearest 1,000, let's take 1,479. Rounded off to the nearest 1,000. We now consider the last 3 numbers, in other words, your hundreds. The rule of thumb is that if this number or these numbers here are less than 500, I beg your pardon, not 5,000, 500, then we round down. Okay, if they are less than 500, we round down. If they were more than 500, we are going to round it up. If they were more or equals to 500, I'm sorry about that. If they were more or equals to 500, then we are going to round up. In this case, our answer becomes 1,000. Example 2, 1,579. Now, looking at our hundreds there, we can see that that is greater or equals to 500. Rounded up, our final answer becomes 2,000. Last example, we now have 16,000 in the last example, 16,239. Have a look at your hundreds there. So as we clearly can see, that's less than 500. So round down. So our final answer there becomes 16,000. Thank you very much, ladies and gents. I will see you for unit 3.5, which is adding and subtracting decimals. Have a good day.